Hi, this is Julie Murphy with Arizona Farm Bureau. It's another wonderful Friday, and I'm in another wonderful hangout with the Arizona Department of Agriculture for the series that we're doing on getting to know what the Arizona Department of Agriculture does for you and me. So because it's our Talk to a Farmer Friday, and we're now live here on Instagram, for those that join us, post some comments or questions if you have any. Joel, who's on the other side of this I want to say camera, but it's really his smartphone. But Joe Carr on the other side of the camera can kind of raise his hand and if you have a comment or a question. But thank you for joining us. And then for those that watch this later, thank you. So today I'm here with Teressa Lopez. We've known each other for quite some time. I often think of you in your role of teaching us about food safety, but exciting news. She's newly appointed as the Associate Director for Plant and Produce Services. Yes. Okay. And so congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's an honor. I am really excited for this new role.
Awesome.
I've been working and preparing for this type of role for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. And I'm excited to be, this maybe is your first official interview on doing this. So, well, tell us a little bit about you, because that's how I like to start. And then, we can just launch right into the division and the things that you're in charge of now.
Yeah. So about me personally, so I was born in Moline, Illinois, which is the home of John Deere.
John Deere country.
Yes, exactly. But my mom, as a single mom, moved to California when I was very young. So I grew up in San Diego till about 10.
Tell her she's a rock star.
She is.
Raised an amazing young woman.
She is an amazing lady. I'm the most like her out of all of her children.
Awesome.
But she's an amazing inspiration to me all of my life. And then we moved to Arizona when I was 10. Grew up mainly on the west side of Phoenix and started my career with the state pretty young.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I just celebrated also a week before last, celebrated 25 years with the state of Arizona.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for the last 19 years, I've been with the Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my vibe is you've loved it because, the times I've run into you and you're very enthusiastically teaching us about food safety, especially as it relates to produce and stuff. But this kind of role has expanded.
Oh, yeah.
So, and now you're in charge of this division. So tell us about it.
Yeah. So a little bit, more on the, how I came into this. So I've always done public administration, really worked with programs that had state and federal funding.
Okay.
And so that's, I was at DOT prior to Department of Ag. And that's how I came into the Department of Ag, into the citrus fruit and vegetable division at that time. And as soon as I got there, we had the 2006 spinach E. coli outbreak.
In 2006.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so the formation of the leafy greens marketing agreement came into play. And so that's kind of where the food safety side
Talk
of it
about
started.
baptism by fire.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. And so for doing administration and budgets and then being kind of thrown into this whole new world of food safety. And really, it is such a rigorous program, and it has grown, and it taught me a lot about, some of the federal food safety stuff that we've gotten into. But our divisions, so now as the plant and produce division, I'm, like I said, new to it. So I'm still learning a lot around the plant side of things. Obviously on the produce side, we have a lot of different programs. So it's a lot of information.
And you've actually only been appointed for a week.
For a week.
You're probably soaking a lot of this
I am.
up yourself. So lay out for us, and you can use your cheat sheet if you want, but lay out for us some of the things that this does and why it's important for the public to know about it.
Yeah. So I'll start with the fresh produce programs because it's a lot, but we do have cooperative agreement with the USDA for fresh produce grade inspection. So we are doing quality inspections on import products that are coming in through the Mexican border, but are from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
These products. So, and that helps we have some mandatory inspections, and we have some warehouse retail distribution center inspections through that program. But it helps just maintain the quality of products that are coming into the U.S. That may be on products in the U.S. that are grown here, that they're meeting the same standards of U.S. grown products and things like that. So that's one program. We also have the Citrus Fruit and Vegetable Standardization Program, which licenses produce and citrus dealers and then shippers of produce, so those that are putting any produce into commerce.
Okay.
And within that program, we also collect those statistics on shipments of products grown.
Oh, wow.
We coordinate too with the USDA Ag Census group or Agricultural Statistics group,
Which just was
data.
released this last year, even though the numbers were gathered in 2022.
Correct. And
so you helped with that.
Yeah, so we help provide them the numbers for our state. And so then they can check that with some of the census work that they do. Yeah, so it's great having those statistics on the impact of fresh produce in the states, whether it's for research grants or for crop inputs, things like that. So it's a really great statistical data kind of gathering program through those shipments.
Cool.
Yeah. And then in 2017, we started to stand up the produce safety program under, getting primacy over the FDA's Food Safety Modernization Act produce safety rule. And so we gained on-farm regulatory authority in 2019.
And what does that mean? I know it's important, but what does it mean?
So now what we do is we go out to, first we do training and outreach. That is our number one, goal, is really to help our farms get into compliance, understand what the rules are, understand what the regulations are around food safety. And so it's around worker practices. It's about the water, soil amendments, any of the inputs that are going into the product, and then the handling of that product on farm and the safe handling.
So you're also the workers that go out into the fields, you're training them as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. And so we do the training and outreach with the farms. We do something what's called an on-farm readiness review through that program. And it's kind of a one-on-one educational where we'll walk the farm with them, our trainers, and point out, areas that they can improve specifically on their farm in order to comply with that standard.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's non-regulatory. It's all just to help them then be in compliance.
And if they commit after you share your improvements, they have to document that. They have to keep that in a...
Correct.
I call it the binders, the food safety binders. Okay.
Yeah. And we provide them resources that really break down and say, like, here's the regulation. This is the documentation we're looking for. This is, to give them really step-by-step instructions about what is going to be required of them when, an inspector comes out to do an on-farm inspection. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful program. The FDA actually funds it nationally. I believe it's 42 states that are participating in it currently. Yeah. So it's been a huge undertaking since about 2017 is when we all started to stand this up. But it has been a wonderful program to see just the alignment through states. And
you guys at the state level, so it's boots on the ground to me, have more control of making sure that you're assisting and aiding and training and supporting our farmers and stuff. But it's a little bit different, and I may be jumping ahead, and I want us to cover it all. But is it different than the LGMA thing? Now, what's the distinction of those? So that was a national program, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so for the Leafy Greens program, like I said, it started in 2006 after the spinach E. coli outbreak. Industry solicited the Department of Ag for the first and only marketing agreement that the state has ever had. And they established the Leafy Greens Food Safety Committee, who oversees the program. But what it is there's a set of metrics and standards, about 100-page best practices document, and it's commodity specific for lettuce and leafy greens. Super rigorous. It's probably the most rigorous food safety auditing program out there.
Wow.
Actually, FSMA and a lot of what FSMA was developed in FSMA used some of the LGMA metrics as the model.
That's what I like to tell people, and I don't know if I always have it right, but you just confirmed it for me. So on the federal level, they followed some of what you've done with that Leafy Greens marketing agreement. Okay.
Yeah. And even just recently, they put out their agricultural water rule. They they revised it. It's about the third attempt that they've had at it. But they did follow some of the practices within the LGMA regarding ag water assessments, which we've had in the program since the very beginning, if you will. But yeah, and so with the Leafy Greens marketing agreement, so it's a voluntary program, but it requires mandatory compliance. And so, so we cover about almost 99% of all leafy greens and lettuce that are shipped out of the state through our membership.
So what that means is, as a farmer, if it's voluntary, I don't necessarily have to sign on to it, but if I do, then it becomes mandatory for me. Okay,
yeah,
that's
compliance too.
Okay. So what else? This is all interesting to me.
Yeah. So in addition to the produce safety rule, the leafy greens, we also recently went out after the 2018 E. coli outbreak in Romaine.
Mm-hmm.
We were not at that time during the investigations and some of the rollout of that outbreak. We did not have what is called a rapid response team in our state. So there is a federally funded program through FDA called Rapid Response, which is like a multi-jurisdictional program funding, so that in your state you can work with other folks like Department of Health Services, Water Resources, Department of Environmental Quality, universities, things like that, to respond to human and animal food outbreaks.
Okay.
And so in 2018, we weren't eligible for that funding. But through a lot of persistence and working, with the Produce Safety Rule program, with the FDA, through the Department of Ag, we were able to get FDA to actually change the requirements so that we became eligible. And so
as the rapid response team.
Correct, to get the funding.
Driven by the state. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, again, state to state, we know our own issues.
Mm-hmm.
We're boots. There's more of an immediacy in terms of the boots on the ground. Okay.
Yeah. Because in 2018, we, things kind of kicked up in April and the FDA wasn't able to get out into Arizona until June, end of June. So just the response time, and by then too, the season's completely over. We've transitioned, it was just the timing. It just takes too long, right?
Yeah.
So we really needed, funding in a program that could address these issues sooner. And at the state level, again, back to that, we know the farms, we know the area, we know the environment. Our partners here in the state also have that experience. So we, about a year ago, we received funding. So we've just started to stand that up, do the training, working with some of these other agencies to really develop a system and a process map of how we can address these quick and handle them. So,
and you guys bring in I know on your advisory committees, you guys bring in the farmers and the shippers to kind of, you're not doing this in a box.
No,
I mean, this is good for the public to know that you're pulling in as many experts from all walks. Maybe a better way to say it is stakeholders.
Yeah. No, the stakeholders have been supportive of this. We provide them updates, probably at least 2, 3, 4 times a year on these programs as we're developing them, asking for feedback. Also, in the development of the Produce Safety Rule program, the LGMA, we have those relationships that are already there, established, built, and so it's really helped us to really start pushing this program and being able to address things faster.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's a very exciting program. And then on the side of things that I'm not as familiar with
you're learning.
But I'm learning.
Yeah.
And honestly, all of the employees, and I've gone on nursery site visits and out there in the fields with a lot of the inspection staff. It's just extremely passionate people doing amazing work for our environment. But I did want to be able to speak to what they do as well. And so they have 3 main areas that they work within for plant services. So the first is their detection programs, and they're conducting surveys, deploying monitoring traps. And this is for high-risk insect pests and plant pathogens that could be detrimental to our plant industry, to our commodity industry and agricultural trade in Arizona, and also to just backyard landscape as well.
So under this division, like I grew up on a cotton farm, And this was back in the 80s or 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm older than that. But when this outbreak of whitefly,
Mm-hmm.
so the plant division would have probably come along to help with that process.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think we still have staff that were a part of that, during that time in our state, so it's like,
Wow.
it's very subject matter experts within this program currently. And
a lot of domain knowledge.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been very fortunate to be able to come into this environment with just such amazingly knowledgeable folks in this world.
How large is your team? How large is the division?
So the division is a little over 100 people.
Wow.
Yeah. And then in our Nogales office, we do hire about up to 110 seasonals between November and June of each year.
Okay.
For tomato and grape imports that are coming into the state.
I really want to get out there because they say it's an amazing thing to just view the whole process.
It's crazy.
That's where all the vegetables are coming in.
Well,
kind of in this, right?
Yeah, and during the grape season, so they have over 20 million packages of grapes that cross in like a 6-week time period.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. It's insane. Yeah. A lot of hard work.
Maybe you and I will hop in the vehicle and go down there together or something.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And as a part of this monitoring and trapping, they're looking for about 11 different pests currently. Some of those are exotic fruit fly trapping. They're monitoring nursery stock for imported fire ant. And then they're surveying and sampling for citrus greening disease.
Wow.
Some of the big. The second area that they objective kind of the program is really their state and federal certifications on plants and commodities, allowing market access to agricultural commodities that have been known to host some of those pests that they trap and monitor for, that could potentially limit the distribution in the state because of those concerns around those pests. So without this work, the producers in the state wouldn't have access to other markets because they wouldn't be able to ship those, out of state, things like that, if they didn't have some of these program certifications. And then the third main objective is compliance and surveillance inspections to safeguard agribusiness producers from pests and plant diseases and commodities that are imported into Arizona.
Okay.
And so that nursery stock, again, super high risk for them. That is a major priority for the group.
So to pause, then if some plants are being imported into Arizona, they have to be inspected.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Some have treatment requirements.
Regardless, even if they don't. Yeah.
Correct. As they come in. And so they're also looking at the commodities in the retail and consumer markets, just double checking for those as well, just to make sure that no pest or plant disease could be coming into our state, because it could really wipe out and devastate our own plants, backyard, larger commercial.
Well, isn't the tree greening thing, I forget where they say that started, but it didn't originate here in Arizona. It's kind of gone across the country.
Correct. So we actually are
the teeny little fly or something like that.
Yeah. Well, so the Asian citrusillid, right?
Yeah.
Is the vector for
it. Yeah.
For it. So at the beginning of this year, actually, our USDA partners did find citrus greening in the Nogales area.
Yeah.
And so in some residential areas, so they were doing their monitoring, trapping, things of that nature. And they did find an Asian citrusillid with the HLB, which is a citrus greening disease. And so once they found that pest, then they started going and looking at the trees in the area, monitoring and sampling and finding out. And indeed, they have found it. And so now they've created a quarantine, and it's just south of the Mexican border in the Nogales area.
And it has devastated orchards, I know for sure, in Florida, and that's where a lot of our juiced orange juice citrus comes from, is Florida. I'm pausing a little bit for station identification. This is Teressa Lopez and myself, Julie Murphy, for Talk to a Farmer Friday, our regularly scheduled program where we're talking to farmers and ranchers and other stakeholders like Teressa in the industry to make a difference, to learn about agriculture, to answer questions. And so that's my team player, Joel, he's saying there's no question. So we're good on that front. I actually, just to highlight, and I'm not even going to remember all the terms, but to highlight how important it is for you guys to do what you do. So in the Great Lakes region, there was it looks like an eel. It's this blood-sucking, they call it a sea something. Let's see, I told you I already forget a term. Well, it's very common and native to the Atlantic Ocean. And they're saying, how did it get into the Great Lakes? But it did. And so it became a pest, and it devastated in the lower Great Lakes region all of the fish, the commercial fishing. It completely wiped it out. And they were desperate. And so they, assigned a scientist who was connected with the extension with the land-grant university. It took them a decade to find and it was a pesticide, a chemical pesticide that they still to this day, they did find the solution that wouldn't kill your native fish. It couldn't impact or affect negatively any of your wildlife. It couldn't harm humans. So they spent a decade trying to find something that would just singularly kill that eel that had destroyed the entire commercial fishing it. And now what they brought back, and I think there is some commercial fishing that's been brought back, but they had to reintroduce some other fish. And now sports fishing is hugely big at the Great Lakes. These are some of the crazy things that I watch on TV, and they don't realize. I don't realize how serious some of these infestations can be. Yeah. Whether it's a virus or a bug or whatever it is. And so this is what I like to say is your division, at least on the plant side, is you're kind of that shield between the public needing healthy, safe food. Correct. And all of these crazy insects and bugs and viruses that want to attack. Yeah. I mean, they're hungry too. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing the amount of public health protection that the Department of Agriculture does, along with environmental protection. Yeah. I mean, it's and the amount of efforts that go into it, safeguarding the food supply, safeguarding, our stakeholders and commercial, production and things of that nature.
So this is exciting for it. You had a specific area, mainly the leafy green side of it, and now you're covering both of it. I mean, like, you've only had a week to reflect on this. What does this mean to you? What's your philosophy for taking this on?
Yeah, I think that, I have, again, 25 years experience in this work. So I think I have a lot to bring to the plant side of things from things I've learned on the produce side, So a lot of it is right now, because the agency is going through a transition. It's really staff focused. There's a lot of staff focus as well around really just becoming very cohesive, looking where we have resources, that are shared, breaking down some of the silos, between the two programs, and really just becoming one big team. We've had our own individual divisions with our teams, but now kind of crossing over on that side of things. So that's a lot of my initial focus, is really just getting into that. But on the larger side of the public health protection, environmental protection, even in the plant world. So just this week, I was in Nogales for the public meeting that was held for the citrus screening, and just the collaboration with the federal partners, which on the produce side, that's what we've done as well. But seeing it show up here in the same kind of way with the stakeholders, with the public as well, to really work through this problem, work through this challenge. That's one of the best things about working at Department of Ag, is really working with the stakeholders, consumers, industry, federal government, state government, other, folks.
It's really a people job.
It really is. It's the partnerships that you really work through, and just the relationships that you develop in this world. And it's a small world too.
Yeah, it is really.
Because even on the plant side, it's like, oh, I knew 2 or 3 of the folks that I just met that are more on the plant side, but have met through other industry events or agricultural events. So it's.
It sounds like you may be traveling a lot as well.
Yes.
Okay. Do you like that part?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that people component of it, some of your people are always out in the field, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So,
and we have offices in Yuma,
okay.
Dallas, Tucson, Phoenix, so it's wherever I go, I have friends,
somebody,
coworkers and folks, and
you never have to feel alone.
Exactly. So all of the travel is great.
That's awesome.
I don't mind it at all. Yeah.
So you kind of alluded to that right now. You're working at breaking down silos, making a more cohesive team. Yep. Obviously, getting to know those people on the plant side of it, where you were on the produce side of it. Yeah. To know them a little bit more. Talk about fun team building opportunities and stuff like that. Even if it's just getting together and having a good visit. Yeah. But what are some of your future goals now that these 2 areas have been merged?
Yeah. So, one of our challenges is funding and resources.
Right.
And so since my time in the produce side, I've been able to bring in new programs, new funding. So I'm hopeful to also be able to do the same on the plant side. Okay. Is really work towards what kind of funding opportunities are there out there to help us and to help our stakeholders. One of the smaller programs I didn't mention is we do a pass-through grant with USDA for organic certification cost share. Cool. Mm-hmm. And we gave, producers in Arizona like $500,000 back over, a 10-year time period. But those kind of opportunities where like getting the resources needed to really support the agency, to support our stakeholders, these programs, is really a lot of my focus and an area that I've been successful on the produce side in doing. And
so we can say that's kind of your sweet spot. You hunt, even if it takes under the rocks for resources that you can make application to the team. Yes. And sometimes that stuff is going back to the producers or the other stakeholders. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, in the training and outreach piece alone that we do is huge, helping them to understand and really to comply, or just for their own knowledge, on their farms about best practices and things of that nature. Yeah. And how they can help. So
are you, and a lot of organizations say that, especially if you're a state organization or you're nonprofit, is funding a nerve-wracking thing? How are you feeling about the future with funding?
Yeah, so I mean, we're already seeing funding cuts. We're already seeing, federal grant funding cuts. We're seeing some of the federal folks that we work with, some, that they've had a reduction in force as well. So some of our partners are longtime folks that we've partnered with. We've seen some folks actually.
With a state agency, do you ever see an opportunity where there's more of those public-private? I know that the Yuma Ag Center has a public-private, and resources are pooled. A lot of that management and drive of it is on the land grant U of A side of it, but they really are listening to the growers in Yuma to kind of, because of funding, to dictate some of the research that needs to be done based on some of the, again, whether it be an insect or a virus or something that's attacking the vegetables. So what's causing this? What's the vector? How do we control the vector? How do we manage that? So do you see opportunities like that, or will most of yours be grant related?
No, definitely opportunities like that on the produce safety side. So in our produce safety rule program, we partner with the University of Arizona and their cooperative extension. Okay. And we have seen huge strides in that. This is the first time, say, for instance, harvest employees are being regulated. right, under the produce safety rule. And so we have been able in the last 2 years to really build capacity working with University of Arizona. And we have trained in almost a year and a half about 4,000 harvest employees and supervisors on these food safety standards. And that's in cooperation with University of Arizona, them getting some grant funding, us coming with some of our funding, and then able to really do that kind of work. And so I see the same opportunity even with the citrus screening. At the public meeting we held, we had university extension partners there as well, and they were offering their help in the outreach portion of that. And so that's great. That's resources that we don't necessarily have that they do. So taking advantage of those opportunities, using those connections, statewide to really make better and bigger impact, for sure.
So you can certainly speak to this on the produce side of it, but now you're in charge of both plant and produce service division. But is there a story you like to highlight about the teamwork that it took to do something important, critical, emergency focused? I mean, we had that E. coli outbreak. You mentioned that in the romaine lettuce in 2018, and then you couldn't get the FDA here on time. But whatever the story is there something you'd like to highlight that just speaks to teams, speaks to everybody coming together and making a difference?
Yeah. So very specifically, the 2018 outbreak, it was devastating, and it was devastating to our leafy greens producers. They feed that product to their families. I know that you talk about that. They talk about, the fact that they feed that to their families. But there was just, it was so intense, and it was incredibly hard going through that. The FDA pressures, there was a lot of finger pointing and things like that, and not having the answers, not knowing what the point of contamination was, how vast it was, and really seeing the farmers just go from just this, very, very heaviness to saying, well, we still got to feed the world. And just hearing that from them, and they, get up, dust themselves off, and back at it, doing what they need to do. Obviously, we worked through setting up additional, best practices and standards. We added additional standards at that time based on just some of the root cause work that we did in some groups. But just that resiliency on the farm side of like, nope, but we have a bigger job and a bigger duty, right? And then even further than that, so in 2019, FDA did come out and their Office of Regulatory Science approached the department and approached industry, and were willing to fund a 5-year study, a longitudinal study of that area in Yuma, Wilton, where they took thousands of samples. It's the largest environmental research project.
And they completed that, didn't they?
And they did. They just this last May. We hope to see some publications out of it, hopefully by the end of this year. But it was a collaboration. The University of Arizona helped lead it. Dr. Shanna Rock, who you've had on your show. So she helped lead it, working with the Welton Mohawk Irrigation District, working with the growers and the produce industry in Yuma. And then with the FDA regulatory, the Office of Regulatory Science. And so they really, it was environment, it was water, they did test plots, and really just seeing that collaboration. And, even some of the initial work when they would get findings, they would let the producers know, so that, and on the LGMA side, we were able to make immediate changes to the best practices based on that science, based on that research. And so to me, just that undertaking, and too, because the 2018 outbreak, when the FDA came in to investigate, it was difficult, and they came in hot, they came in late. It was, it was a very, they had lost a lot of trust in, I think, the producers in the area.
Sure. And
so this study and the work that they all came together to do, I think, helped rebuild that communication, that relationship. And I think FDA is better for it. I think they learned a lot too about on-farm production. And it's just been great to see. That was definitely a huge win to see such an undertaking and such collaboration.
You know, I work more, just because I'm with Arizona Farm Bureau, I work more with the farmers, not so much with the shippers. And then, you know, I have the privilege of interacting with you guys at times just because I show up for one of your training sessions to learn myself.
Yeah.
But I'm always kind of chuckling after I leave with a farm visit, especially if I'm down in Yuma during the peak of harvest, because they act like you don't eat enough and they're always wanting to send you home with more. So they're literally stopping by one of their fields, cutting the romaine, whatever it is, and boxing you up and sending it home. In the meantime, they're tossing a little bit in there for their own family. But it's this attitude of, you know, we're here to feed ourselves, feed the world, and make a difference in doing it. So, and I can attest to that because I never leave Yuma empty-handed. So that's pretty neat.
It is.
If you had, and you really do, this is your audience. Most of our regular viewers to this watch Talk to a Farmer, Talk to a Rancher after we've recorded it and posted on Instagram. We also share it on azfb.org. In fact, all of these, Teressa, just so you know this for information too, we post them on our website.
Okay.
We actually upload them to YouTube, so they're also on YouTube, and then we post them to Arizona Farm Bureau's website, azfb.org, and that's just the whole section of this whole series. I wanted to understand more about what everybody does, and I thought, you know, I'm kind of the average. I always like to say I'm a perfect average person. I figure if am interested in this, I know there's somebody else down the road. And we do get most of our views once we save it. I don't even know what the count is from the website, but just on Instagram, by the time it's done, Sheldon Jones almost got 1,000 views.
Oh, wow.
And then Robert Smook was last week, and he was in the 800s rather. So there's a lot of views, but it's an opportunity for you to tell the public why what your team does is so important. So what would you say to them?
Yeah, so I think it's really about, again, I think I said it before a little bit too, just the public health protection that goes on, right, with these food safety inspections and audits, training, education, and then also that environmental protection with these plants, with all of that. And then behind the scenes, how many people? So like you asked, how many folks are in our division? You know, the amount of people that are in the, you know, on these teams, and these wonderful, amazing subject matter experts in what they do, and so passionate about what they do in the background, right? And then those partnerships that we have statewide, nationwide, to do this work is really, you know, if they can walk away with anything, it's just the impact that Department of Ag has, and specifically the Plant and Produce Division has, you know, in Arizona and nationally.
Because of what both of those areas did separately, and it makes sense that they're together, because they're really doing it again, that guardian, putting up the shield between all of those pests that want to attack and the public's need to have fresh, healthy produce, plants. You know, we don't often think of it that way, but when I see that, that's kind of the image that comes up. There's this, you guys may be the last line of defense, and so you have an important role.
Definitely.
Are there moments after you were promoted to this position when you're a little bit overwhelmed? Oh my gosh.
Yes, definitely. You know, you definitely feel the weight of it, but ultimately I know what I've come through going through things like the 2018 outbreak. It really did just like that test your limit, those really hard times, but being able to get through it, you know, and get better and build better programs and things like that. Like I'm very excited for this.
That's awesome.
And I'm up for the challenge.
That is great. And congratulations. And thanks for taking the time, because obviously now that you're in charge of plant and produce, Teressa, this was a treat for me too, to get to talk to you and learn. So hang in there. Blessings to you, and blessings to everybody that has joined today. And for those that will watch this later, we're continuing the series. We've got at least 3 more we're going to do. I think we're going to get to go out to the weights and measurements, little testing place. And so that's going to be fun. So stick with us. You're going to learn as much as I'm learning about the Arizona Department of Agriculture. It's a very important organization and a role that they serve, so that you and I, when we sit down to our dinner tables, can be confident that our food is safe, healthy, and abundant. Blessings to you. See you next Friday.